Let's start out as we do each week by bringing in this week via the telephone line, Will Richmond, the digital city news editor at the Herald News. Hey, Will, how are you?
I'm good, Keith. How are you doing?
Good. Let's start off, unfortunately, on a sad note. It's been a while, but last Friday, the tragic traffic accident which claimed the life of Hannah Raposo. Ms. Raposo on her way to the Durfee High School prom, lost control of her vehicle, ejected, and lost her life. And for those of you who don't know about the story, it was well publicized locally in the news late last week and early this week. Ms. Raposo, the granddaughter of former Fall River City Councilor Mike Mioza. And it really was a tragic story, as all fatal traffic accidents are, Will. But I guess when it's tied into prom, and unfortunately you hear these types of incidents happen way too much in terms of fatalities on prom night, it really brought it closer to home for most people, didn't it?
Yeah, this is really a time of year that many families are celebrating between proms, graduations, and those type of events. So for this to happen to a young girl who had just recently been honored by the Boys and Girls Club as their Youth of the Year, it's really unfortunate situation, and kind of puts a little bit of a damper over the season. Yeah,
and the Durfee High School graduation is, I believe, this Sunday at Durfee. So again, another added disappointment to what, as you said, is normally a joyous time of the year for students at their proms and at high school graduations and college graduations. So again, we'd like to extend our condolences to the family as well, as they're still dealing with this tragedy. All right, back to city government. And this time of the year, we've talked a lot about budgets. Budgets are back in the news again for another week. The school committee this week met in special session Tuesday evening to make amendments to their spending plan and to finalize a budget of $137 million. It was, again, less than what they originally asked for, but in line where they really didn't have to make any substantial cuts in terms of personnel in the city. And talk about how that came out, Will, in terms of the school department negotiating with Mayor Jaziel Correa on the spending plan.
Yeah, well, it appears that negotiations between the mayor's office and school administrators were taking place up until Friday, when they reached the agreement to increase the allocations to the school department. This amount will still result in some layoffs, so it appears hopeful that some of those people that may get laid off will be able to fill in some other positions that were vacant. So at this point, there will still be some programs cut. It appears the Gateway to College program with DCC will not be continued. Some schools that were doing extended learning time will be cutting back on their time a little bit. And then they did cut some stuff around the edges as well to try to trim up the budget and reduce the impact on personnel and move forward from there. So what looked like it could have been a very sort of catastrophic situation with layoffs seems to have been decreased at least somewhat.
Right. So it's still not the ideal situation for the school department, what their initial wish list was in terms of budget for FY 2017, but also, as you said, not as bad as it could have been. Getting back to the city side, the City Council will begin holding hearings on the city's FY 17 budget next week. And you had the opportunity, or the Herald News had the opportunity, to sit down with Mayor Correa last week to delve more deeply into the 2017 spending plan. And one of the items which was reported in the paper earlier today was the fact that during the mayoral campaign last year, Mayor Correa, then candidate Correa, had mentioned that he was going to not take his full salary for this current fiscal year and donate that money toward the purchase of a police cruiser. Well, in the spending plan that's going to begin July 1st, the mayor is, in effect, taking his full salary, and there's been questions about what was actually saved from the mayor's salary in this 6-month period. So talk a little bit about that, and how was it easily picked out by the Herald News by looking at the budget that, hey, the mayor's getting his full dole here?
Yeah, well, certainly within the budget itself, the documentation shows a full salary for the mayor.
Right.
There was no indication he was returning some of it for purposes related to pensions and that kind of thing. The mayor is still required to take the full salary.
Correct.
And then give back whatever they say they will return it.
Sure.
But he indicated that 25% cut was it was no longer going to be in effect beginning July 1st, and as such, his full salary would be restored to about the $119,000. So he said that the previous 6 months, while a police car was not purchased with the money, it was used to help sort of shore up the budget in other areas. For about a 6-month period, that would likely equate to about $15,000 or so.
Right. So obviously not enough to purchase a cruiser, but I believe the mayor also mentioned that it was being credited toward the this year's budget in the mayor's office, not necessarily earmarked for anything in particular, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And of course, next week, as we said, the city council will start looking at the budget, asking questions of department heads. In the city councils you've spoken to, and we've spoken to a couple as well, have any of them given any indications that there'll be any big red flags that the budget may be stalled in any way, shape, or form?
Well, at this point, there's been some squabbling about some of the smaller amounts in the budget. The city council president, Sean Kadeem, had raised some questions about a $20,000 allocation in the mayor's office, which the mayor says will be used to hire a person or to tack on responsibilities for someone else related to tourism efforts in the city. There's also a $7,000 amount in the mayor's budget related to travel, which the mayor says he'll be using to travel to the quarterly meetings of the United States Mayor's Conference. So there's been some smaller amounts that have grabbed the council's attention. Haven't heard a whole lot about any of these bigger numbers, though I'm waiting. There may be some questions, especially since the mayor has implemented this zero-based budgeting process, which has led to potentially some wiggle room being removed from budgets going forward. So that's probably a topic that will come up as well during the council hearing.
All right, I'm sure we'll have more on that when we talk next week. All right, Will, what's up on tap at the Herald News over the next few days and into the weekend?
Well, certainly we continue with graduation season, so we'll have full coverage of Durfee's graduation on Sunday. And also coming up this weekend, we've got an interesting look and some interviews with members of the Fall River branch of Gamblers Anonymous. They recently celebrated their 40th anniversary last month, and they sat down. Some of the members sat down and talked with us about what it's like to be in the group and the sort of growing gambling temptation in the area with casinos coming online, and the expansion of scratch tickets, lottery tickets, and all those kinds of games.
Right. So, okay, very good. So check out the Herald News over the weekend. All right, Will Richmond, thanks for joining us. We'll talk again next week.
All right, thanks, Steve.